Sixpence is a short story written by Katherine Mansfield. This is quite a humorous story with a touch of sadness. The story tells us about everyday situation when parents are educating their children by physical punishment. The story is written in the third person, but in the last third of the story can see into the mind of the father in particular, following his thought processes. The theme of this work is "Should Children Be Whipped?" Taken from her Something Childish and Other Stories collection. The story is narrated in the third person by an unnamed narrator, and from the beginning of the story the reader realizes that Mansfield may be exploring the theme of freedom. Dickie, though his mother doesn't like it, expresses himself to the best of his ability. He runs around the garden staying away from his mother when she is calling him. It is as though Dickie is free or feels free to do as he wishes, even if it is going against his mother's will. This may be significant, as Mansfield may be allowing for a character in the story to express themselves or allow them to do innocently as they would see fit. Dickie isn't prepared to take orders from the girl servant or his mother. As far as he is concerned, he is free to do as he likes, regardless of what others may think, which is a trait that is admirable in a person. Dickie shows no fear when it comes to others. The theme of control, or rather the lack of it, is self-evident in the story. Mrs. Bendel has lost complete control over Dickie. No matter what she does, Dickie is not prepared to adhere to her ways. It is left to Dickie's father to discipline him, even though he feels guilty about hitting Dickie and does not really know why he did it. So clouded in anger is Mr. Bendel that he cannot see that he is in the wrong. It is only when Dickie calls Mr. Bendel Daddy that he begins to realize that Dickie can forgive him, though he can't forgive himself. Even when he runs into the garden, things get worse for Mr. Bendel. There is nothing he can do but attempt to bribe Dickie, hoping that this will be enough for Dickie. Mrs. Bendel, on the other hand, and on the advice of Mrs. Spears, is adamant that Dickie should be punished, and punished by his father. This may be important, as it feels as though Mrs. Bendel is pushing her own problems with Dickie onto another person. She feels free to admit she has lost control over Dickie, but is not prepared to do anything about it herself. There may also be some symbolism in the story which is significant. The slipper that Mr. Bendel uses to hit Dickie is out of place. Slippers are meant for feet, not for holding in one's hand and hitting another person. It is possible that Mansfield, by introducing the slipper into the story, is suggesting that the beating that Dickie takes is as out of place as holding a slipper in one's hand. Mrs. Spears, though only briefly mentioned, also acts as a foil to Mrs. Bendel's character. It is through Mrs. Bendel's uncertainty of what to do with Dickie that Mrs. Spears influences Mrs. Bendel. She is a motivator to disharmony and chaos in not only Mrs. Bendel's life, but more important, and without knowing it, in Mr. Bendel's life. The sixpence that Mr. Bendel gives Dickie is also important, as it symbolizes corruption. One corruption attempting to cover up another corruption. The end of the story is interesting, as Mansfield appears to be further exploring the theme of uncertainty. Mr. Bendel, when he leaves the sixpence on Dickie's pillow, is uncertain as to whether Dickie is prepared to forgive him. This too may be significant, as there is already a sense that Dickie does not hold any grudges against his father for hitting him, which in reality makes Dickie the braver and stronger man in the relationship between father and son. It is also noticeable that Mr. Bendel vows never to hit Dickie again. It is as though he realizes he was wrong. Yet the sixpence may not be good enough. At least not for Mr. Bendel, who may have acted out of character when it came to hitting Dickie. He does, after all, not fully realize why he has hit his son. He has been instructed to do so by Mrs. Bendel. Yet Mrs. Bendel isn't prepared to admit that Dickie has gotten the better of her. The real blame in the story lies with Mrs. Bendel for following archaic methods when it comes to disciplining children. End of the summary. Thank you.